So that's a little bit of context, and also just a few things to think about in terms of how you perceive memory, because sometimes just perceiving it in a different way can then lead to it operating more efficiently and you going, wow, okay, that's cool, and taking on some new ideas. And if you've got any questions, queries as I'm going through, put them into the chat and the Q&A. We'll cycle back through those later. From my perspective, in the work that I've been doing with the photo reading for the last 20 years, and I've been teaching it since I became a photo reading instructor in March 2002, I would say there are some key components that go alongside and work hand in hand with memory as well. So things like your learning style, things like your learning strategy, your learning strengths, your convincer strategy. What we're going to talk about today is the learning beliefs, because this is what we want to clear with the Huna and Access Consciousness. And at the end, I'm going to share with you a few memory strategies as well. But all of these things can go into the mix in terms of enhancing the memory, enhancing the way you learn, enhancing your comprehension, and everything that kind of comes with that. So, common blocks and barriers to memory: beliefs, stress, anxiety, lack of clarity, poor focus, inefficient strategies, fear, and perfectionism, and also self-doubt and low self-esteem. So these are some of the things that I want to be looking at when we do the clearing process in a few minutes. So just to give you a bit more on that, in terms of just to get the grey matter churning, so you can be what I call bringing to the surface and lighting up in your neurology the things that resonate with you, so that when we're going through and doing the Huna Clearing and doing a bit of Access Consciousness, your unconscious mind and your neurology is already started. I think of it like putting out the rubbish, putting out the garbage. We go, oh yeah, there's that, and there's that, and there's that, and there's that. So you want to start bringing these things to the fore. In terms of things like beliefs, these can show up as, I'm a slow learner, I've got a bad memory, oh, I always forget. It's almost like their identity statements and things that people think and believe. And oftentimes when you say to people, oh, that's interesting, when did you decide you're a slow learner? One of two things will probably happen. They'll either say, oh, I don't know, I just am, because it just is, the way they perceive it. Or they'll come up with a memory and they'll go, and this often comes after, I don't know. They go, I don't know. Oh, well, actually, and then they'll start recounting something that happened. For example, they were reading something at school as a child, and they were reading very slowly because they hadn't yet learnt to read properly, and people were laughing, or teachers, oh, come on, hurry up, we haven't got all day. And it just a throwaway statement in that moment, but that could have just landed with them where they were already maybe feeling insecure, self-conscious, etc. And then it just wheedles its way in and becomes almost cemented into the psyche as an actual belief, whether or not it's true in its purest sense and form. So that there's that. Stress and anxiety can put us into what you call the fight or flight response, which is the sympathetic nervous system. We want the opposite when we're reading, when we're learning, when we're accessing our memory, when we want to be more creative. You want what we call the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the body's natural relaxation response. But when you're in stress and anxiety, that actually jars the system and it starts closing things down. There's also the whole thing about lack of clarity. So people feeling overwhelmed, too much to do, oh, forget it all anyway. And then you just kind of give up almost. And when you've got 50 million things coming at you, it's almost as though your brain has to protect itself in a way and go, whoa, okay, everybody stop, go away, I can't take anymore. And also if you don't even know what the point of what you're doing is, that makes it difficult then when it comes to the recall to know what you want to recall, to know what you're supposed to be recalling, to know what the actual important information is. So all of that, and we live in a world and a society prior to what we've had going on, if you're watching this in real time, where it's almost been like a 24/7 society, a bit like Wall Street, never sleeps. Now, we've had the complete reverse of that, where the streets are pretty much empty. And that for some people have brought up a whole different set of issues because they don't know how to be with themselves. However, they've at least, if they've taken the opportunity, had a chance to have potentially less coming at them in terms of the day-to-day. But of course, then that's been compounded. all of the other information that we've been flooded with. But the overwhelm is a really big one that can get in people's way. The poor focus and inefficient strategies, so the mind is scattered, it's all over the place, and then that even just makes it difficult to bring it all together, to piece the memories together, to recall and remember anything in a structured way. You've got the fear, and perfectionism is a really big one. On the photo reading workshop, we do the perfectionist script and the self-defeating nature of that. However, it's major. And what it does is it makes people dissatisfied even when something is good, sometimes even excellent. So somebody might remember, I don't know, 75, 80, 90% of something, but the perfectionist wants 100, and therefore the 75, 85, 90% gets discarded. And so that's how people can then buy into the mistaken belief that there's something drastically wrong, when actually, no, you've just discarded all of this other good stuff. On the face of it, to be a perfectionist sounds like a really great thing, and don't get me wrong, it has some very big pluses. However, when it comes to learning and the mind and the memory, it can be something that, again, completely jars the system and just changes the nature and color of everything in terms of what you see, what you perceive, and what you notice and what you don't notice. And then there's a whole thing with self-doubt, low self-esteem. And again, one of the questions I'm always asking is, okay, when did you decide X, Y, Z? But if people don't have a sense of confidence, they don't have a sense of belief, oh, I could never do that, oh no, that would never work, you then buy into that before you've even started. And the memory in the brain in some respects is a little bit like the genie's lamp, where the old traditional thing is you rub the lamp and the genie comes out and says, your wish is my command. Very similar thing going on here. If you are saying, oh, I can't do that, I'd never be able to do that, oh, I don't have the confidence to do it, it's like, your wish is my command. And then that's the action that gets followed through on. That's the perception that you run things by. Those are the filters that you wear. And even in the face of conflicting different evidence, you're most likely to disregard that because you give so much stock to the other thing. So when I say to people, when did you decide? That's a break state where it just makes you go, oh, number one, people go, well, I didn't decide. And they might want to argue about that for a little bit. But number two, they go, oh, actually. And then there's a woman called Byron Katie, a thing called The Work. And it's very simple at its purest form. And one of her questions is that really true? And so whatever people say in terms of the decision or not, or the thing that happened, or the internet, I go, great, fantastic. Is that really true? And it could have been very true then. You might have been a slow learner when you were 7 years old. If you haven't gone back and looked at those old beliefs and decided to change them, it may no longer be true. However, because it's kind of pervasive, you perceive yourself to be slower or worse than you are, etc., etc., etc. So I would say always put a break state in there as we go through. So those are some of the common blocks and barriers. Now, in terms of Huna, for those who have not experienced it before, because I know I've got some names here that I don't recognize, in a nutshell, ancient Hawaiian healing self-empowerment technique. It means secret or concealed knowledge. It is a way of empowering yourself, releasing energetic blocks, and it works with energy, it works with symbols, it works with something called the elementals, it works with the elements. And so what we're going to be doing today, for those of you who've never experienced Huna before, we will do the bells and whistles version, because the silent version of Huna is, while I'm talking, there can be a Huna energy transmission. Somebody's booked on a call to go, oh, Huna energy, and then all I'm doing is talking and going through slides and having discussions and yada, yada, yada. It feels like, oh, well, what are we doing? Where's my energy? And so the bells and whistles version is where you use the breath. And you draw the symbols on the breath, as in draw them with your hands, fingers, and you deliver the symbols on the breath. So just so you know what's coming, it sounds a bit like this. Oh, actually, before I do that, for those of you who want to receive the Huna energy, you just give yourself permission to receive it. If you have stumbled onto this webinar and like, I have no idea what this is about, and it's not your cup of tea, then you can just go, no, thank you. And we'll just ask the energy of that just to pass you by, and leaving you and your energy field intact.